In the forgotten town of Harrow's End, 16-year-old Elias Weaver stumbles through a shimmering crack in time, uncovering a hidden library where every book holds a person's life. When he finds his own book, its pages reveal a chilling truth. Someone else is writing his story, pulling the strings of his every choice. As the library crumbles and a sinister scribe emerges, Elias, with his fiercely loyal friend Nora and resilient mother Clara, must fight to seize his quill and rewrite his fate. Dive into a mystical tale of courage, betrayal, and the power to claim your own story before it's written for you. Harrow's End was a town that time seemed to forget, its fields golden under a perpetually gray sky, its streets lined with sagging porches, and a diner serving coffee that tasted of regret. Elias Weaver, 16, navigated its monotony with a book always tucked under his arm. Lanky, with chestnut hair that fell into his hazel eyes, he was an outsider among his peers, their talk of football and parties alien to his quiet world of stories. His mother, Clara, a widow, worked grueling shifts at the mill, her smiles weary but fierce. Since his father's death a vague accident when Elias was 5, books had been his refuge, their pages a place where he could be a hero, not a shadow. On a chilly October afternoon, with storm clouds brewing, Elias took a shortcut through the oak grove behind Harrow's End High. The grove was ancient, its trees gnarled like old men whispering secrets. He'd walked this path countless times, but today, the air buzzed with an electric hum, faint yet persistent, like a heartbeat in the earth. His curiosity, a trait Clara always said would get him into trouble, pulled him toward a massive oak, its roots sprawling like veins. At its base, he saw Ida crack in the air, no wider than a book, pulsing with golden light. It shimmered, impossibly as if reality had torn. Elias's heart raced. He glanced back at the grove, empty and silent, then reached out. The crack swallowed his fingers, warm and tingling, and before he could pull back, it yanked him through. He stumbled into a chamber vast as a cathedral, its walls lined with bookshelves that climbed into a starry void. The air smelled of ink, leather, and something older time itself, distilled. Floating crystal lanterns cast rainbows across a marble floor that rippled like a pond. At the chamber's heart stood a desk, carved with glyphs that pulsed faintly. Behind it sat a woman, ageless, her silver hair cascading like moonlight, her obsidian eyes seeing through him. "Welcome, Elias Weaver," she said, her voice a chorus of whispers. "You've found the library between moments." He froze, his backpack thudding to the floor. "How do you know me? Where am I?" "I am the custodian," she said, rising, her robe shifting between dusk and dawn. "This is where lives are written. Every book holds a soul's story, penned as they breathe. You've crossed a rift in time, rare feat. Tread carefully." The shelves beckoned, their spines glinting with names in gold. Margaret Voss, 1843. 1901. Aisha Khan, 1995. Clara Weaver, 1978. His mother's name hit like a punch. He reached for her book, but the custodian's hand stopped him, gentle but firm. "Reading binds you to their fate," she warned. "Choose with care." Elias nodded, his throat tight. He wandered the aisles, the shelves shifting like a living labyrinth. In a dim alcove, he found it. Elias Weaver, 2009. His hands shook as he opened it. The pages chronicled his life, his father's funeral, Clara's late-night tears, his lonely walks through Harrow's End. But the words felt foreign, too sharp, as if written by a stranger. The latest entry read, Elias steps into the oak grove, drawn by a hum. The ink was wet, the sentence trailing off. "Who's writing this?" he asked, voice trembling. The custodian materialized beside him, her gaze piercing. "Your story lives, Elias. It writes itself for, so it seems. But some tales have unseen hands." Unseen hands? Dread curled in his gut. "Seek the truth," she said, fading into the shelves. "But beware the library keeps its secrets close." Elias clutched the book, his world tilting. Someone was scripting his life, and he was determined to find out who and why. The library became Elias's obsession. Each night, when Harrow's End slept, he slipped through the crack in the oak grove, the real world fading like a half-remembered dream. School dragged math equations blurred, his friend Nora's chatter about art projects barely registered. Nora, with her paint-streaked jeans and fierce optimism, noticed his distance. "You okay, Eli? You're like a ghost lately," she said, her brown eyes searching. He mumbled excuses, unable to explain the library's impossible glow. At home, Clara caught him sneaking in at dawn, her face lined with worry. "You're not in trouble, are you?" she asked. He lied, hating the hurt in her eyes. In the library, Elias pored over his book. New entries appeared daily, the ink flowing as he lived. Elias skips lunch to read in the school library. Elias avoids Nora's questions. The words were precise, cold, not his. Stranger still, they predicted actions he hadn't planned. One entry read, "Elias will visit the mill, seeking Mr. Harrow." Harrow, the mill's owner, was a gaunt man with a reputation for cruelty. Elias had no reason to see him yet the next day. An urge he couldn't shake drove him to the mill's gates, his voice demanding answers about the grove. Mr. Harrow's sneer, "Mind your own business, boy," left him shaken. But the book's power was clear. It was steering him. The custodian watched, her riddles maddening. "Every life has a scribe," she said, polishing a lantern. "Some guide gently, others grip too tightly. Look beyond your pages." Elias explored other books, seeking clues. Clara's revealed her sacrifice-skipping meals to buy his novels, hiding her loneliness. Guilt gnawed at him. Nora's book showed her sketching late at night, dreaming of art school but fearing she'd never escape Harrow's End. Each story was a weight, their hopes and sorrows lingering in his dreams. The library itself was changing. Shelves creaked, lanterns dimmed, pages tore free and drifted like moths. The custodian's voice grew strained. "The library exists between moments, but time phrase, a scribe's hand disrupts the balance." Elias's book was different. Its pages thicker, the ink almost black, as if claiming more space. He found a chilling entry. "Elias will betray a friend to save the library." His stomach churned. Was he a marionette? Strings pulled by an unseen force? In Harrow's End, a stranger arrived. Gideon Blackwood, a historian with slick hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He spoke at the town hall, claiming the town sat on a temporal anomaly, his words laced with hunger. Elias overheard him quizzing locals about the oak grove, his gaze lingering on the mill. Suspicion flared. Gideon knew something. Nora, ever curious, dug into town archives and found a photo. Gideon with Mr. Harrow dated 1953. "They haven't aged," she whispered, showing Elias. "What's going on?" Elias's book pushed him again. Elias will confront Gideon at the diner. He fought the urge but found himself there, voice shaking. "What do you want with the grove?" Gideon's smile was a knife. "Some stories aren't yours to read, boy." That night, The book wrote, Elias will follow Gideon to the mill, facing a truth too heavy. Against his will, he trailed Gideon, hiding in the mill's shadows. There, Gideon and Mr. Harrow stood over a glowing orb, its light like the library's. The boy's book is mine, Gideon said, his voice venom. I write his fate. Elias's breath caught. Gideon was his scribe, controlling his life. The realization was a blade, but the question burned. Why him? Elias's world fractured. The library's pull was a drug, its shelves both sanctuary and prison. At school, he was a specter, dodging Nora's worried glances. Talk to me, Eli, she pleaded. But he couldn't. Not yet. At home, Clara's questions grew sharper. You're scaring me, Elias. What's going on? He wanted to confess, but the library's secrets felt too big, too dangerous. His book's predictions grew bolder. Elias will steal from the mill to prove his loyalty. He resisted, but his hands trembled at the mill's gate, the urge nearly overwhelming. The library was crumbling faster. Entire shelves collapsed, their books spilling like wounded birds. Lanterns shattered, plunging aisles into shadow. The custodian's form flickered, her voice urgent. The scribe's greed tears time apart. Your story is the key, Elias. Find its source, or all stories fall. His book's pages were now heavy, the ink pulsing like a heartbeat. A new entry chilled him. Elias will sacrifice Nora to protect the library. He slammed the book shut, vowing to fight. Gideon's presence in Harrow's End grew sinister. He lingered at the diner, the school, the mill, his eyes tracking Elias. Townsfolk whispered about strange lights in the oak grove, blaming kids or ghosts. Nora, undeterred, hacked the town's old records, finding Gideon's name tied to disappearances decades ago. He's not human, she said, her voice steady despite her fear. Elias's book confirmed it. Gideon seeks the boy to claim the library's heart. But why Elias? The custodian's answer was a bombshell. Your father, Thomas, entered the library. He swore to guard it. Gideon killed him, and now seeks you, believing your heart can bind the library's power. Elias's grief, long buried, roared to life. His father hadn't died in an accident. Gideon had murdered him. The library held Thomas's book, its pages ending abruptly. Thomas defies the rogue scribe, protecting the rift. Elias wept, reading his father's vow to keep the library safe. He was no scholar, but a guardian, like the custodian. Gideon's plan was clear. Control Elias to seize the library, rewriting all lives for his own gain. Elias tried to resist the book's pull. He skipped a predicted trip to the mill, only to find himself there hours later, as if sleepwalking. Gideon's entries grew cruel. Elias will burn the grove to end the rift. The words felt like chains. Desperate, Elias showed Nora the library, her gasp echoing as she touched the shelves. This is impossible, she said, but her artist soul embraced it. She sketched the glyphs, vowing to help. You're not alone, Eli. Her courage shamed him he'd pushed her away, but she stayed. Clara's worry peaked. One night, she followed Elias, stepping through the crack. The library awed her, but her focus was her son. Whatever this is, you don't face it alone, she said, her mill-scarred hands gripping his. Their bond, strained by silence, began to heal. Nora deciphered a glyph that could bind a scribe's power, but it required Elias to rewrite his book, a risk that could erase him. You're strong enough, Clara said. You're your father's son. Elias clung to their faith, but Gideon's shadow loomed. The mill hummed with the orb's light, a piece of the library's heart. Elias's book wrote, Elias will kneel to Gideon, saving Clara. He vowed to defy it, but the ink's pull was a tide, dragging him toward a fate he feared he couldn't escape. The library was a battlefield now. Shelves toppled, their books screaming as pages dissolved. The marble floor cracked, time's fractures spiderwebbing outward. The custodian flickered like a candle, her voice faint. The scribe's quill poisons the library. You must sever his hold, Elias, or all stories end. His book was a monsteret's cover hot, its pages writhing, each entry a command. Elias will betray Nora at the mill. Elias will destroy the library to save himself. He fought the words, but his body moved against his will, his feet carrying him to the grove, the mill, Gideon's orbit. In Harrow's End, Gideon's influence spread. Townsfolk grew listless, their eyes dull, as if their stories were fading. The diner's radio looped static. The grove's lights pulsed violently. Nora's research uncovered Gideon's past. A scribe banished for twisting lives. He'd hunted rifts for centuries, feeding on stories to defy death. Elias was his Prisia pure heart to anchor the library's power, letting Gideon rewrite existence. The orb at the mill was the key, a stolen fragment of the library's light. Elias's resistance faltered. One night, his book forced him to steal a mill key, Gideon's voice in his mind. Obey, and Clara lives. He hid the key under his bed, guilt choking him. Nora confronted him at school. Her sketches of the library crumpled in her fist. You're shutting me out, Eli. I'm not giving up on you, he snapped. The book's prediction Elias will betray a friend burning in his skull. Stay out of this, Nora. You'll get hurt. She flinched, but her eyes held firm. I'm not afraid. Clara's discovery of the library changed everything. She read her own book, learning of Elias's guilt, his fear. You're not a puppet, she said, her voice steel. You're my son, and you fight. She joined Nora's research, her mill knowledge pinpointing the orb's hiding spot, a locked vault under the mill. But Gideon was steps ahead. He cornered Elias in the grove, his quill glowing black. Your father defied me and paid. Submit, or Clara burns. Elias's book pulsed. Elias will kneel. He resisted, collapsing, the ink searing his mind. The library's collapse accelerated. Entire wings vanished, books crumbling to dust. The custodian revealed the stakes. If Gideon merged the library with Harrow's End, he'd control all lives, erasing free will. Elias's heart was the rift's anchor. His surrender would seal it. His defiance could break it. Nora's glyph was their hope, but rewriting his book risked unraveling his existence. I'm not ready, Elias admitted, fear choking him. Clara hugged him. You don't have to be ready. Just be you. Gideon struck. He kidnapped Clara, leaving a note at the mill. Bring the boy, or she dies. Elias's book wrote, Elias will trade the library for Clara. Nora found him, her voice fierce. We do this together, or not at all. They planned an assault on the mill. Nora's glyph their weapon, Clara's courage their guide. But Elias's doubt lingered. Could he defy a scribe who'd killed his father? The library's hum was a dirge, and his book's ink felt like blood. The mill loomed under a moonless sky, its smokestacks clawing at the stars. The orb's hum shook the ground, the library's light bleeding through the rift. Elias, Nora, and Nora's sketched glypha spiral of binding magic crept through the mill's shadows. Inside, Gideon stood before the orb, its glow illuminating Clara, bound and gagged. Mr. Harrow, his eyes vacant, guarded her, a puppet to Gideon's will. Welcome, Elias, Gideon purred, his quill burning black. Kneel, and your mother lives. Elias's book screamed. Elias kneels. His knees buckled. The inks pull of ice. Nora grabbed his arm, her whisper fierce. You're stronger than this. Clara's eyes, defiant through her gag, echoed her. Elias clutched his book, Nora's glyph pulsing on its cover. The library's hum surged. Shelves appearing in the mill's walls, time folding. The custodian's voice echoed. Write your truth, Elias. Gideon laughed, scrawling. Elias surrenders. The words burned, but Elias fought, his hand seizing a quill from the air, its ink gold like the library's light. Clara broke free, lunging for the orb. Its light seared her hands, but she held it, weakening Gideon's quill. Nora chanted the glyph, her voice a beacon, binding Gideon's power. Elias opened his book, the pages trembling. I write my own story, he roared, writing. Elias stands. Gideon falls. The library lives. The words blazed, the library's shelves roaring to life. Gideon screamed, his quill shattering, his form unraveling into shadow. The orb pulsed, sealing the rift, its light fading. Clara collapsed, Nora catching her. The mill's walls solidified, the library retreating to its moment between time. Elias's book glowed, its pages blank beyond his words, his future his own. The custodian appeared, whole again. You've saved the library, Elias. Its stories are yours to guard. She handed him a quill, its weight both burden and gift. Elias nodded, his father's vow now his. The library stabilized, its shelves gleaming, lanterns bright, but the cost lingered Clara's burns, Nora's exhaustion, his own trembling hands. Gideon was gone, but Mr. Harrow fled, his role unclear. The mill stood silent, its secrets buried. Elias's book was his, but the library's power was a responsibility he couldn't ignore. He looked at Nora and Clara, their strength, his anchor, and knew he wasn't alone. Harrow's End woke under a dawn sky, its fields golden, its air lighter. The oak grove was quiet, the cracks sealed, the library hidden between moments. Elias stood with Nora, her sketchbook open to a drawing of the library, its magic in her lines. Art school's next, she said, grinning. You're coming to visit, right? Elias nodded, his smile real. Clara, her hands bandaged, hugged him, her mill shifts easier with a new manager. Mr. Harrow's disappearance had shaken the town, but no one asked why. The town felt alive, its people brighter, their stories free. The diner's radio played jazz, the grove's lights gone. Elias carried the library's weight, visiting nightly to tend the books. The custodian guided him, her riddles now lessons. His book was his to write, each entry a choice. Elias helps Nora with her portfolio. Elias cooks soup for Clara. Elias faces his classmates, no longer invisible. He wrote of courage, of dreams, of a world beyond Harrow's End. One night, he read his father's book, its final page a letter. Elias, guard the stories. You're my light. Tears fell, but pride rose. He dreamed of Thomas, smiling under a starry sky, and knew he'd honored him. The library's shelves held new books, lives beginning, their ink fresh. Elias added his own. Elias will explore, carrying the library's heart. Nora carved an inscription in the grove. Stories live in us, written by our hearts. The town whispered of the boy who'd changed, his quiet strength a beacon. Clara watched him, her eyes proud. You're your father's son, she said. But you're you, too. Elias smiled. the quill in his pocket a promise. The library hummed, its lanterns eternal. Elias's story was unwritten, its pages open. He'd face new rifts, new scribes, but with Nora's fire, Clara's love, and his father's vow, he was ready. The inscription's truth rang clear. Even when fate scripts your life, courage and love can seize the quill, crafting a tale that shines beyond time. Stay curious, stay bold, and write your own forever.